what genres do you currently write in and why?
Well, I mean, kind of, spoiler, right? The book. So I'm very much epic fantasy, dark, kind of gritty, epic fantasy. I'm kind of the older generation, right? So I grew up reading the books, in the 80s, 90s, late 70s. So for me and my generation, we just called it fantasy. So I'll be honest, I start to struggle with some of all the different subgenres. I don't
Oh yeah.
quite get it. So now sometimes I say I write dark, grim, sword and sorcery, epic fantasies, and I think it covers I think it covers it all. But it's mostly inspired by my love of playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. And so these books came out of my love of playing D&D, and actually the two main characters in the book, which would be Vidge and Grim, are me and my best friends D&D characters from when we were like
Oh, I remember you
teenagers.
saying this on another interview. I don't know if it was with
Yes,
Chris from Bearded Book Beast or Bald and Balding, but I remember you saying that. Yeah, it might have been with Mike and Roe actually. Yeah, I think that's really
could have
cool.
been. Yeah, so these are, now they're not campaigns that we played, these are all
Hmm.
brand new, unique stories, but the two characters themselves were our D&D characters from, 40 years ago
Oh,
that
that's
I've
cool.
just had been thinking about for years and years until I finally wrote the first book back in 2022, published it in 2024.
That's awesome. That's super cool. I get that because I've been calling it dark fantasy. Yeah, we had a campaign before the pandemic and it was just so much fun. It was like I was like a skull, like a Northern Barbarian skull. And then my friend was like this dwarf, who was like I don't remember what the subclass was of the rogue, but it was just really cool. And we just got into so much like hijinks. And then my friend was like an elf druid. And then I just threw in a couple extra characters. I was like, this could be just a D&D party, fantasy, and just like straight, yeah. And it was just like all has been coming together. It's been really fun. I can't wait to get back to it. But it's fun to write off of those experiences, right? And like even if it's just the characters, like the personalities themselves. I don't know. It's nice when you already have those like kind of developed. I think it creates a very unique story.
It does, although I have to admit that I have to pull back when I'm writing these characters and make them a little more realistic. Because I admit,
Yeah.
when me and my friends played back in the day, I don't know if they use the term anymore, but we called it back in the day, it was Monty Hall type campaigns. So we would be just throwing magic items at our characters, and our characters would be, dripping in gold and whatever. So, by the time our characters were finished, they were basically like, you remember the old deities and demigods book,
Oh
or
yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
like we would literally sit around with each other and be like, let's flip a page. Oh, okay, Thor comes down now, and we, oh, okay, hi, kick Thor's butt. It's like just how crazy they got with power
Yeah.
scaling, because we just went off. We started realistic, and then after a few years, it just went crazy.
I get that. I had some like because like I my buddy he goes, you can't put he goes, I go, do you mind? Because I asked, I was like, do you mind if I, put the characters in this book series? And he's like, oh, I think that sounds brilliant. I go, all right. And he goes, but they're really stupid. Said, no, we're stupid. I said, we played them in such a ridiculous way. I said that I think there's a kernel there where, and I actually came up with a very interesting way of writing book one where I think it's a little bit of a twist based off of like some of that, right? Is like trying to turn them into real characters, with actual depth. So I totally understand that. I've talked to a lot of people on here. Jake Fredenall, actually was another one where he was DMing a lot and for his friends, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you should write, these stories, and then like that's what he's been doing is like from their actual campaigns. But that's what he found too after the first couple drafts. He was like, oh, I was the DM, I can narrate well. He's like, but I had to go back to my friends and be like, so what would you do? Like you did this in the game, but what would you actually do? But I think that that ended up helping him like create some more depth.